Some stories don't begin with fireworks. They start with the small, quiet moments. The kind you wouldn't think twice about, until they burn themselves into your memory for good. For me, it started on a gray Sunday morning. The kind of morning where rain taps against the window like a gentle warning, but you're too busy sipping coffee and reading the news to notice. Emily was humming in the kitchen, flipping pancakes, still wearing her faded university hoodie. I thought we were just two ordinary people, stuck in an ordinary routine. I used to believe I was lucky. A stable marriage, a comfortable home, someone to share the small things with. We weren't perfect, but who is? Our arguments were rare, our laughter genuine, and the silence between us never felt uncomfortable. I thought that meant something. I thought that meant we were safe. That morning I couldn't find my car keys. It was such a small problem, but it drove me crazy. I retraced every step, pulling open drawers, checking under jackets, flipping through the pockets of jeans slung over the chair. Nothing. That's when I saw her work bag. It was sitting by the hallway bench, right where she always dropped it after work. The bag itself wasn't unusual. Old leather, a little worn at the edges, a gift I'd given her years ago on her birthday. I knew every scuff on it like the back of my hand. But the zipper was slightly open. Just enough to catch my eye. Out of pure habit more than suspicion, I reached inside, fingers sifting through notebooks, pens, and receipts. My keys weren't there. But then my fingers brushed against something cold and unfamiliar. A smooth rectangle, heavier than I expected. Phone. For a second I thought it was her usual one. But as I pulled it out, I noticed the difference. No case. No scratches. No stickers on the back like the one she always carried. Just a plain, unmarked, spotless phone. My stomach sank. I stood there for a long moment, staring at it in my palm, feeling the world tilt ever so slightly under my feet. My brain raced to explain it away. Maybe it's her old phone. Maybe it's for work. Maybe it's a spare. Maybe. But before I could finish that thought, the screen lit up. A notification. A message preview, short and sharp. No name I recognized. No business talk. Just 4 words. Miss you last night. The room suddenly felt colder. I slid the phone back into the bag so fast I almost dropped it. I stood there frozen, hands in my pockets, staring at the floor like it would give me answers. Emily was still in the kitchen, humming the same tune, flipping another pancake like nothing in the world had changed. I didn't say a word. Couldn't. My mouth was dry, my thoughts tangled. That night, after she kissed me goodnight and drifted off to sleep beside me, I lay awake in the dark, replaying the moment over and over. My chest felt heavy, like a stone had settled inside me. I didn't have proof. Not yet. Just a single text message and a gut feeling that refused to let me sleep. But deep down, I knew this wasn't over. The truth was waiting for me. I just had to be brave enough to find it. The day after I found the second phone, the world looked the same, but nothing felt the same. Emily still brewed her morning coffee, humming to herself like she always did, scrolling through her real phone, the one I'd seen her use 1,000 times. She kissed me goodbye before leaving for work, her lips soft and familiar, but all I could feel was the weight of that hidden phone burning a hole in my thoughts. I wanted to believe I'd imagined it, that I'd misread the message, that it was all a misunderstanding. But the moment she walked out the door, the silence closed in around me, and all those excuses I'd tried to convince myself of the night before crumbled under the weight of suspicion. I couldn't sit still. I paced the living room, sat down, stood back up, walked in circles. My mind replayed the moment I held the phone, the cold feel of it in my hands, the words on the screen. Miss you last night. I had never felt more like a stranger in my own home. The walls that once held laughter now felt like they were listening to me, and every photo of us smiling back at me felt like some cruel, staged lie. By noon, the curiosity had turned into obsession. I waited until I was sure she was settled at work. I even called her, just to hear her voice and her usual cheerful, "Hey babe," before I carefully unzipped her work bag again. The phone was still there. It was locked, of course. No fingerprint access for me, no password I could guess. Just a blank, silent screen like it was mocking me. But luck or fate or something else entirely has a dark sense of humor. As I was holding it, the screen suddenly lit up. Another message. This time longer. I can't stop thinking about you. Last night was perfect. When can we meet again? No name. Just a number. I sat there, phone in hand, heart pounding against my ribs like a trapped bird. My stomach twisted with nausea and anger, but I still couldn't move. I wasn't ready for the truth, and yet it was already staring me in the face. I scribbled the number down. I didn't recognize it. Not a family friend, not a coworker. Just a faceless number tied to the person I trusted most. That night I couldn't pretend. I barely spoke at dinner, pushing food around my plate as Emily chatted about her day. She noticed, of course, leaning her head to one side like she always did when something felt off. "You okay?" she asked, her voice soft. He nodded. "Right. Just tired." But the weight of the secret was suffocating me. I couldn't eat. I couldn't sleep. I started replaying everything in my mind. Every late night she came home later than usual, every time she silenced her phone, every weekend work event she claimed she couldn't skip. When she finally drifted off to sleep beside me that night, I lay there wide awake, staring at the ceiling, rehearsing the conversation I knew was inevitable. But the next day I went further. I used the number from the text. A simple online reverse lookup. My hands trembled as I typed it in, as if part of me still hoped it would lead to some innocent explanation. Didn't. The name that popped up belonged to a man. Man I knew. Not a stranger. Not a coworker. Someone from our world. But the name wasn't clear at first. The online directory only showed initials. I felt my stomach churn as I stared at the screen, my mind filling in the blanks with possibilities I didn't want to believe. That was the moment I knew the affair wasn't a distant, anonymous fling. It was closer to home than I ever imagined. I still wasn't ready to confront her. Not without more proof. I needed more. And deep down, I knew the second phone wasn't the only secret. It was just the beginning. The following days were the longest and loneliest I'd ever lived. Even though Emily and I shared the same space, the same bed, the same breakfast table, it felt like we were planets orbiting each other, never quite colliding, never speaking the words I could feel swelling between us like an overfilled balloon. I kept the secret locked inside, but it gnawed at me. Every time her phone buzzed, her real phone, I flinched, watching her face closely. Was it him? Was it another lie? I stopped sleeping. My mind was a projector, playing the same haunting movie on a loop. The second phone, the text messages, the unfamiliar number linked to a familiar name. I imagined every scenario. Her in someone else's arms, her laughing the way she used to laugh only with me. The images were cruel, and yet I couldn't stop them. The breaking point came one cold, gray evening. Emily had just come home. She kicked off her heels, dropped her coat on the chair. The same routine, like nothing in her world had changed. But everything in mine had. I couldn't pretend anymore. I couldn't sit across from her one more night, watching her pour a glass of wine with that same easy smile. I stood there in the kitchen, hands gripping the edge of the counter so tightly my knuckles turned white. I watched her move around the room, humming, lighting candles, setting the table. All the little habits of a life I thought I understood. When she turned to me, catching my hollow, distant stare, her smile faltered. "Are you all right?" she asked, cautious this time. And I didn't answer. Not right away. Instead, I walked to the small side table near her bag, the bag where the second phone always lived, and unzipped the front pocket. Slowly, deliberately, her face changed. I saw it before a single word was spoken. The phone sat there as it always did, silent but loud enough to shatter me. I held it up in front of her, the weight of it heavier than any object I'd ever touched. "You forgot to take this out," I said, voice low, almost foreign even to me. For a moment the room stood still. Emily's face paled. Her eyes flicked from the phone to me, her lips parting, but no words came out. Just silence. Just raw, undeniable guilt radiating from her like heat off a flame. "Whose number is it?" I asked. My voice cracked, but I kept my gaze steady. She swallowed hard, finally finding her voice, though it wavered. It's nothing, just an old phone I kept. For work. Lie. A weak, rushed lie. I let out a sharp, humorless laugh, the kind that only comes when anger and heartbreak collide. Work. I repeated. So work sends you messages like last night was perfect. When can we meet again? The color drained from her face entirely, and she sat down slowly like her legs had given out. Who is it, Emily? I pressed, the words almost choking me. Tell me the truth. Don't lie to me. For a long while she said nothing. The quiet stretched out, heavy and suffocating, until finally, in a voice barely above a whisper, she said the name. And it felt like the air had been sucked from the room. It wasn't a stranger. It wasn't someone distant. It was someone we both knew. Someone I considered a friend. And as the name echoed in my head, everything else fell away. The dinners, the shared holidays, the conversations about marriage and kids and future plans. All of it felt staged, a performance I didn't realize I was part of. Tears welled in her eyes, but I couldn't find it in myself to comfort her. Not this time. You've been lying to me, I whispered. For how long? She wiped her face with trembling hands but didn't answer. That told me everything. The pain came in waves, sharp, unexpected, overwhelming. I felt like I was drowning right there, standing in the middle of our kitchen, surrounded by the life we had built together, now crumbling brick by brick. I left the room before I could say anything I'd regret. I needed air. I needed distance. But most of all, I needed to face the reality I'd spent days denying. My marriage wasn't just broken. It had been broken long before I found that phone. The night after the confrontation felt endless. I lay awake on the living room couch, staring at the ceiling in the dark, trying to piece together every moment of the last few months, looking for signs, for clues I should have seen, for conversations that now sounded different in hindsight. I kept hearing her voice over and over. That name. That one name that changed everything. It wasn't just the betrayal of my wife. It wasn't just the affair. It was the fact that the person she'd chosen wasn't some faceless stranger. It was someone I had once shaken hands with, laughed with, invited into my home. It was personal, cruel, and deliberate. The next morning, Emily came downstairs as if her feet weighed 1,000 pounds. She looked different. Not the woman I married. Not the woman I believed I knew. She looked like a stranger wrapped in the skin of the person I once loved. She sat across from me at the table, neither of us speaking for a long time. When she finally did, her voice cracked under the weight of her guilt. I never meant for it to happen. That sentence hung in the air like fog. I didn't answer. Couldn't. She tried again, her voice even lower. I didn't want to hurt you. I didn't want to destroy us. I didn't know how to stop. I kept staring at her, searching for some part of the woman I fell in love with, but the longer I looked, the less I recognized her. It wasn't anger that hit me in that moment. It was grief. The grief of losing something you thought was unshakable. The grief of knowing the person sitting across from you had willingly dismantled everything you built, piece by piece, in silence and in secret. I got up from the table without saying a word. I wasn't ready. My heart wasn't ready. The next few days blurred together. I went to work, I came home, I slept on the couch. Emily tried every now and then to start conversations, to explain, to apologize, to reach for the smallest thread of connection, but every attempt fell flat. My trust was gone. And without trust, what's left of a marriage? Eventually, I did the one thing I hadn't yet done. I reached out for help. I called my older brother, someone I hadn't truly opened up to in years. I told him everything. The phone. The messages. The confrontation. Name. The silence on the other end of the call said it all before he even spoke. Man. I don't even know what to say, he muttered, his voice heavy. You don't deserve that. Hearing those words from someone else, someone who loved me without conditions, was the first time I realized how deep the betrayal really ran. I had spent so much time doubting myself, wondering if I had missed signs, if I had failed as a husband, if it was my fault. But no. The choices she made were hers alone. That night, I sat down with a pen and paper and started writing everything I needed to say. I wrote letters I'd never send. I wrote down the questions I'd never get answers to. I wrote down the pain, the disbelief, the anger, the heartbreak. And when the page was finally full, I knew I couldn't stay. Not because I didn't love her, but because I couldn't survive in a world where love had been replaced by lies. The next day, I made an appointment with a lawyer. I didn't tell Emily right away. I needed the decision to settle in my chest before I broke the news. I wanted to be sure. I wanted to be strong. When I finally sat her down, I could see it in her eyes. She already knew. "I'm filing for divorce," I said quietly. Her face crumpled as if the words had physically hit her. But I stayed steady. Had to. "I can't live like this. I won't," she cried. I didn't. I'd done enough crying. Enough hoping. Enough pretending. That chapter of my life was over. And now, the hardest part would be learning how to start over. In the days after I told Emily I was filing for divorce, the house turned into an empty shell. Not physically. The furniture was all still there. Our photos still hung on the walls. The coffee maker still brewed 2 cups every morning out of sheer habit. But the warmth, the life was gone. I had always believed that heartbreak would feel loud, violent even, like shattered glass or slammed doors. But it wasn't. It was quiet. It was the silence in the kitchen when I made breakfast for one. It was the sound of my own breathing in an empty room. It was the cold side of the bed staying cold night after night. Emily moved out 2 weeks later. She packed her things in the middle of the day while I was at work. I came home to half-empty drawers, an echo in the closet, and a note on the kitchen counter. I didn't read the note. I didn't need to. Some things can't be explained in words, and I wasn't looking for an apology anymore. What followed was a long stretch of numbness. Kept my head down at work. I avoided friends. I deleted photos off my phone one by one, reliving memories as they dissolved into digital dust. I sat in the car for hours some nights, parked outside the places we used to go, just letting the weight of the past press down on me until my chest felt hollow. It took months before I could look at myself in the mirror without feeling like a failure. And even longer to understand that what happened wasn't about me. I realized slowly that betrayal isn't just about breaking vows. It's about breaking the person who trusted you to keep them. Emily had made her choices long before I ever found that second phone. And the day she made those choices, the version of us that I was fighting to save was already gone. I started therapy. I sat across from a stranger who, week after week, helped me peel away the layers of anger, sadness, and self-blame. The sessions weren't easy. Some days I wanted to quit. But each hour spent in that room gave me back a little piece of myself. I reconnected with old friends. I let my brother drag me out to the movies. I adopted a dog from a shelter, a scruffy little mutt with sad eyes who somehow understood the language of silence better than any human could. And eventually, I learned how to be alone without feeling lonely. Looking back now, the discovery of that second phone was more than just a betrayal. It was a turning point. It shattered the life I thought I wanted, but it also forced me to rebuild one that was honest, peaceful, and mine. I don't hate Emily. I don't even wish her ill. I hope she finds whatever it was she was searching for in someone else's arms. But I've learned that forgiveness isn't about them. It's about freeing yourself from the weight of anger you were never meant to carry. If you've ever been in my shoes, if you've ever sat in the dark wondering how someone you loved could lie to your face and still hold your hand, I want you to know this. Gets better. It won't be quick, and it won't be easy. But one day you'll wake up, and the pain will be a little less sharp. One day you'll laugh without guilt. One day you'll meet someone who won't make you question your worth. And when that day comes, you'll understand. The betrayal didn't break you. Set you free.